welcome to SPLA Man Presents. This is SPLA Man. So today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently than what we're used to. I'm actually going to go over licensing questions that you've emailed me over the past, week or so. And we'll get them answered. And then if you have more questions, join our community at community.octopus.cloud. So here we go. John Smythe asked, I run SQL Enterprise. Can I run SQL Standard on those VMs? Yeah, you definitely can do that. But what you can't do is license SQL Standard and run SQL Enterprise, right? So you always have to report the higher edition. So no problem there. Same with Windows Server. You can run, license Windows Data Center, but run Windows Standard VMs. No problem there. Tagline, SPLA is cool asked. Well, I don't disagree. I'm new to Microsoft, and my boss has asked me to learn all these different licensing rules. Where do I find this licensing information? So I don't know if you work for Microsoft, or maybe you're a reseller, or maybe you're a hoster. But anyways, if you're new to Microsoft licensing, I would first start off with joining our community at community.octopus.cloud, just because we review a lot of these different licensing scenarios. But if you're looking for some legal information or terms and conditions by Microsoft, there's the product terms that basically defines everything from an end user perspective. An end user, I mean like a hoster's customers, right? And that will cover things like flexible virtualization, license mobility. I know I'm throwing out terms right now that you may not be familiar with, but anything in customer licensing related will be in product terms. Now there's also a language in the SPR. And that's one thing with Microsoft, there's a lot of acronyms. And so the SPR stands for Service Provider Use Rights. So if you're a hoster and you're under the Microsoft Service Provider Licensing Agreement, another acronym, SPLA, that's where you'll find those terms. And anyways, I highly recommend just join the community. We can have open dialogue like this. If you have questions, I actually host a lot of webinars. I know Microsoft puts out some information too, but sometimes that can be a little difficult to read. So that's where I would start if you're just beginning, or maybe you've been in the licensing game for a while. I always say the one thing that's consistent with Microsoft is change. Oscar in Barcelona asks, I think he's asking, where is the information regarding audits? Well, there's really two places. There's a master agreement that goes over audits, like why Microsoft can audit. And if you're under SPLA, there's a SPLA indirect audit or agreement that kind of goes through the audit process as well. So I would start with those two agreements. A lot of customers will ask, well, where do I find the master agreement? I didn't know one existed. Well, when you sign an agreement with Microsoft, you have actually signed a master agreement as well. So those are really the two agreements, language, I guess, that you can read up on audits. It's a fun read, by the way. Carter in London. I am trying to determine if I run Office 365 in my data center, are there any requirements? Seems too good to be true. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what the flexible virtualization is. If you mean that, like you can have customers bring their subscription licenses into your data center. There's no problem there in doing so. There's actually, there are no requirements with flexible virtualization. But again, what we're talking about here is in customer licensing, not you as a service provider, assuming you are a service provider. Like all these changes, CSP hoster, Office 365, flexible virtualization, license mobility, all those have no effect on SPLA. Now, it may affect how you deploy SPLA, like out of your data center, not SPLA, but how you deploy workloads. But all those are in customer-based licensing programs. It just allows them to bring licenses into your shared cloud environment, if that makes sense. Good question, though. James in Atlanta. So I'm going through a Microsoft audit right now. Sorry, James. But if it means anything, you're probably not alone. The auditors are asking for information regarding my customers. I think he's probably meaning your end customer information. Regarding workloads I'm not reporting for. And I don't even have access to these machines. So how do I handle? Well, remember in an audit, you always have to prove the way your licensing is accurate. And if you just say to the auditor, hey, these are end customer licenses, you got to make sure that they have active software assurance on those licenses or an active subscription on those licenses if it's a shared environment. And so, you always have to prove the way your licensing is accurate. So that's a reality. I would say, trying to read what else he wrote. You have to have an active subscription. I've actually seen it where an auditor had a call with the end customer and the hoster together that basically allows them to state the reason why they're asking for this information. They can also provide language like via email that you could send to your customer as to why they're asking this information. I couldn't understand the latter part of your question, but James, but if you want to shoot me over an IM or email me, I'd be happy to discuss. Linda from Toronto. Another audit. I have a question. I settled a Microsoft audit a couple years ago on an Azure commitment, and now there is no way we can hit that commitment. What are my options? Well, several years ago, even now, that's one way Microsoft settles audits is not necessarily a cash payment, but an Azure commitment. And sometimes when you do it that way, companies think, well, I can always hit my Azure commitment, no problem. And then all of a sudden, it's been a couple of years, and now it's time to pay up, and you don't meet that commitment. So what do? Well, I don't know, my mom always says honesty is the best policy. So I would speak to Microsoft. They'll work with you, not against you, in my opinion. They're certainly not in the business of trying to shut you down or close up shop, but you do have a legal responsibility to Microsoft when you sign that settlement letter. So again, I would talk to Microsoft because maybe there's some ways you can fulfill your commitment, and maybe it's Azure Arc or something like that maybe you can look into. They'll certainly walk you through it. And I guess in my opinion, it's best to be honest. But if you have more questions on it, just let me know. You can email me or hit us up in the community because maybe there's others that have gone through a similar situation. Hasib in New Zealand. We need more Lucy. Actually, she's sleeping right here. She's bored out of her mind. She's so sick of me talking about Microsoft licensing. Can you explain the differences between CSP hoster and flexible virtualization? Not sure why you would do one over the other. Yeah, so a good question. For CSP hoster, you have to actually qualify for the program. And the qualifications are pretty steep. Like as an example, you have to be CSP direct authorized. And if you're not direct authorized, you don't meet the requirement. And to be direct authorized, you have to have a revenue commitment, you have to have a support team in place. Like it's a big deal to be CSP direct authorized. And I think it's a differentiator. So when you ask the difference between CSP hoster and flexible virtualization, I do think that's one way to separate yourself from your competition is becoming a CSP hoster. Because again, you have to qualify in order to do so. So flexible virtualization, anybody can be a authorized outsourcer and qualify for the flexible virtualization program. So in other words, there is no qualification for flexible virtualization. And so what that tells me is it opens up the door to managed service providers, hosters. There's a lot of companies out there that can be part of that program. So if you're not CSP direct authorized, I would stick with the flexible virtualization program and go from there. I think at the end of the day, it's about taking care of your end customers. And if they already made the investment in certain Microsoft workloads, I would not deter that from them hosting out of your own data center. Good question. Yeah, last question. No. Michael Yu in Trinidad asked, well, first off, Michael, if I was in Trinidad, the last thing I would do is ask Microsoft licensing questions. I'd be on a beach somewhere. No, I'm just kidding, man. So I have 2 customers, one licensed with Office 365 and another using Office through SPLA. Is that legal? Yeah, I mean, that's fine. 2 different customers. Maybe one's using flexible virtualization. You have another customer that's using SPLA. That's fine, no problem. You're good to go. Just make sure they have an active software subscription, going back to Hasib's question. SPLA Man in St. Louis asked, why haven't you all joined the community at Octopus? You know, that's a great question, SPLA Man. By the way, you're a very handsome man, if I don't say so myself. Great question. Join. It's free. Go to community.octopus.cloud and you can join. You can hang out with Lucy and yeah, we'll have a good time. I host webinars quite a bit throughout the month, and I also do bi-weekly licensing Q&A. Where I just hop on, do live, and say, you know, here's what I've seen over the past couple weeks, kind of like what we just went through now, as far as questions from community members and those outside in the Microsoft universe. Just ask me licensing questions. Do I know the answer to everything? No. And the reason, you know, and I'm kind of proud of that too, because I learn from you as much as you learn from me. So again, community.octopus.cloud, it's free. Just join and we'll go from there. Anyways, guys, that's all I have. It's kind of long-winded. Hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions that you may have. If not, shoot me up on IM, or you can email me or make a comment and I'll reach out to you. Thanks, guys.